So last year, I set myself the challenge of reviewing every pre-made guinea pig cage on the market. And after going through hundreds of them, I came up with 5. Just 5 traditional factory-made cages that were actually suitable. The most limiting thing by a mile was that 99% of them were simply too small, never mind those that were badly designed and not fit for purpose. This is why so many guinea pig owners, me included, end up abandoning these tiny cages and building our own. And today I'm sharing everything I've learned from years of building guinea pig DIY setups. The design tips that made my life easier, the things I wish someone had told me sooner, and how a well-designed cage can transform the way you care for your piggies. Let's start with the most popular DIY option out there, CNC cages, also known as cubes and coroplast. And as you can see, I don't have a CNC cage at the moment, more on why later, but I have built and modified plenty of them over the years. In fact, I remember finishing my first one, and I'd owned guinea pigs for several years at this point. I sat back and I thought, oh my gosh, why did I not do this sooner? CNC is super easy. The grids connect together with the little connectors, and the coroplast scores, bends, and folds into a waterproof tray. No experience needed and no power tools needed. You can literally do it on your living room floor in a couple of hours with simple equipment. And these days, there are companies selling pre-cut coroplast kits with everything measured, no cutting or scoring needed, and they can be a great option, but don't let the fact that these kits exist make you think that it's too complicated to save money and do it yourself. And as for why CNC is such a great option, well, they are versatile. You can gradually modify the layout, increase the size, change the shape, add storage underneath. But for anyone starting off simple, I have a full tutorial linked down below if you want to see a super clear step-by-step guide on how to build your own 2x4 CNC cage. This one sounds simple, but it genuinely transformed my experience of keeping guinea pigs, and it's get your cage up off the floor. Guinea pigs are prey animals, so when something stomps towards them and they feel the vibrations, or something approaches from above, maybe a hand reaching in, even just your shadow falling over the cage, their fear response kicks in and they are more likely to feel scared and be skittish. At table height, however, suddenly they see you coming from their level. They naturally become more confident around you, picking them up is easier, and they're less likely to run away when you put your hand in. So my advice is to think about the height of your new setup from the start. For CNC, stands made from the extra cage grids work well. You just need to make sure you use lots of cable ties so that the cage and the whole thing is structurally secure. And for CNC or timber build cages, which we'll talk about next, a table or any other piece of furniture works too. Just remember that you do need to be able to reach into the cage easily, so think about an ideal height. And for me, when I've used furniture under the cage, it's been a maximum height of around 75 centimeters. Okay, maybe you've already got a CNC cage and you're ready for something more durable and long-lasting. Or maybe you just want to go straight in with a timber-built DIY cage from the very beginning, which is exactly what we have here. And before this, I had this one. And before this, it was this one. And what led me to move away from CNC cages was that, for one, I wasn't going to be moving home as much anymore. And also, I reached the point where I just wanted something more strong, sturdy, and nice looking. I really especially loved the smart, modern look of the clear plexiglass front panels. The downside is, of course, that timber build cages are not easily modifiable like CNC. So you need to be sure you're building the right size before you start. And when we did eventually move house to this house, it was my old cage dimensions that stopped me from adding to the herd until I'd done this latest upgrade. So do think ahead if your herd size is likely to grow. And the biggest question I get asked about these cages is on the materials. And for me, I would recommend furniture board or coated MDF for the base and the sides. This is white wipe clean, it's non-absorbent, and when you seal it with clear aquarium sealant, it stays waterproof for years. Any DIY store will have furniture board, but I recommend checking with your local timber merchant first. They're often cheaper and many will cut the pieces to size for very little extra cost. And if you want a more rustic or natural aesthetic, then natural wood is an option here, but just remember that it needs treating and sealing, and it's harder to keep it truly hygienic in the long term because it absorbs stuff and it's not wipe clean like the coated materials are. Now for my favourite part, the clear front panel. Plexiglass is the most popular choice here, and the beauty about plexiglass is it's available cut to size for relatively cheap, and it's easy to fix to your cage by simply drilling and screwing it into place. You need to make sure you drill it and follow online advice about drilling through plexiglass close to the edge, because you need to use a certain drill bit and make sure it's secure so that it doesn't crack towards the edge. But it's entirely possible, and I've done it on multiple cages. And to neatly cover the screws, I have used matching white screw caps, which give it a really nice finish too. One thing I found was that the plexiglass warped on my last cage. It was kind of fairly wibbly when you viewed it from the side, and that was at 4mm thick across the whole 2 meters, so you might want to go thicker to prevent any warping. You might have noticed that my current cage is a bit different in that it uses real glass. So I chose this because it doesn't scratch, it doesn't warp, and it will basically last forever. For us, this wasn't a DIY job though. I had to have it professionally cut and fitted. So more on that later, including the cost later in the video. I have to say that storage is one of the most overlooked parts of DIY cage design. Their hay, bedding, fleece liners, pellets, grooming supplies, it all needs to live somewhere, and if you don't plan for it, it will take over your whole house. With a CNC cage on a stand, you can get those IKEA style boxes to slot neatly into the grid sections underneath. They're functional, tidy, and they actually add stability to the whole structure as well. And for timber built cages, you can use this exact principle but in furniture form. So you can mount your cage on Kallax units from IKEA or anywhere similar, and again use the boxes. The only problem is that the boxes are quite small, so depending on the cage sizes and the number of piggies you have, they probably wouldn't really work for bigger things like hay and rubbish and laundry, which ideally they want to be kept out of sight in larger storage bins. And I tried to solve this in my current setup, so I wanted to kind of level up on the storage front and make it as accessible as possible by having everything incorporated under the cage. And the solution for me was kitchen units. So I have drawers with small ones for treats and grooming bits, then underneath are the bigger ones for pads and beds and cage accessories, and finally these pull-out bins, which are my favourite things ever, are for waste, hay and laundry. And another practical aspect is cleaning. So having your cage at tabletop height helps massively. Just the fact that you don't need to kneel down on the floor anymore removes a huge barrier. And something to think about is that levels and ramps can add time to your cleaning. It's not a reason to avoid them completely, but think about it when you're designing your cage. And remember that flat level floor space is the most valuable space for our piggies. The same goes for stacked cages where you might have one on top of the other. It's always going to be harder to clean and get into that bottom cage. Basically, if you have to dismantle half your cage in order to do cleaning properly, then maybe you need to reconsider the design. Now, I'm sure a burning question many of you are wondering right now, and perhaps through the entire video, is what about the cost though? So to start with, CNC cages are extremely good value, especially when you consider the cost per square footage. Most pet store cages are under 8 square feet, smaller than the minimum for just 2 guinea pigs, and they'll easily cost you over £100 or $100. A DIY CNC cage meeting or exceeding that minimum comes in at around £50, so half the price, twice the space. And if you're building it yourself, you can always shop around for the best prices on your materials and even keep an eye out for sales. A timber build will cost more upfront, but again, it doesn't need to be extraordinarily expensive. My previous plexiglass cages cost around £100 each, £150 if you include the calyx units for the cages to sit on. Fast forward to today and account for inflation, and you could be looking at around £200 to £250, maybe up to $350. But remember, you're getting a cage that will last years and need no repairs or maintenance. Spread across all those years of use, it's cheaper than replacing inadequate setups. And for those of you that are wondering about our current setup, I'll be honest and share the cost, but I just want to say that it's kind of a different scenario really. There are three main things that doubled, if not tripled, the overall cost. And that is 1, the kitchen units under the cage. These are proper units that you would buy for a real kitchen, and they cost around £200 to £250 each. And I've got 5 of them, so together they cost me about £1,200. Secondly, using glass for the front, including this single piece which measures just short of 4 meters. And thirdly, the fact that we got professional help to build it. And even though they did it in a couple of days, every hour is technically charged for. So in addition to the kitchen units, I paid £950 for this cage setup, including all the materials and having it built for us. And alongside completely renovating the room, which we did do most of that ourselves, it is one of the biggest investments I've ever made for my piggies and myself. And for me, it's been worth it. So whichever option you go for, CNC, standard timber build, or maybe something more extravagant, they are all worth more than the money you pay. A well-designed cage will make owning guinea pigs an all-round better experience. DIY cages give your piggies a wonderful, spacious home, and happy, well-housed piggies will make your life happier in return. So those are my biggest lessons from years of building DIY guinea pig cages, or having them built for me. So if you're currently housing your piggies in something that isn't quite working, whether it's too small, too hard to clean, or just a bit grim, I really hope this video has been helpful. And as I said, CNC cages are the most popular option for a lot of people. So I will pop my latest tutorial up here. And if you want to see the piggies' very first reaction to this new setup, I will pop that vlog here. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching as always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!